Bueno, muy buenos días a todos los que nos están viendo y a la gran dama de Texas.
Buenos días, Mr. Orlando Sanchez. Welcome everybody to TLC Live on Wednesday, as always, at 11.
Más o menos.
We're being like very good, 11 sharp.
Well, we won't tell people what time you showed up to the studio.
Yeah, well, that's true.
She barges in with that 30 seconds left before we go on.
Like you did last Wednesday. So
yeah, but I'm working. I'm not,
Oh, yeah, I'm not.
sitting at home.
Of course,
enjoying my caviar.
My coffee in front of my pool.
Yeah, right. All right, we have a packed show today for you. And first of all, I want to give you a couple of brief updates. We had the Arctic blast, right, which created the power outages and the rolling blackouts in the state of Texas. But more importantly than that, as you all know, on average, power generation per megawatt hour in Texas is about $25, $35.
Kind of.
$40, whatever. It's like buying gasoline, right? It's either $1.89 a gallon or, if there's a high demand, it goes up to $2 a gallon. It could go up to $2.50 a gallon. Now, there's a theory in Texas law and Texas statutes that, by the way, when there are acts of God, hurricanes, tornadoes, we don't have earthquakes, but floods, that retail outlets cannot price gouge. They can't sell you water that costs normally $1 a gallon for $20 a gallon. That's a criminal offense. They can't sell you gasoline that normally sells for $2 a gallon for $15 a gallon. They can't take advantage of the public during a crisis. However, when the Arctic blast came through, there's a loophole in Texas law, Andrea, that says that the power generators, which most of them are owned by Wall Street interests, we'll get back to that in a minute, don't retail. They sell their power to a retail electric provider, what's known as REPs in Texas. And the price of a megawatt went from, $25, $30 a megawatt. Are you ready? To about $9,000 during that period.
Yeah.
Now, that generated a debt of about $40 billion if you throw in the gas and the megawatt hour. Let's just pick $40 billion. It may be more than that. Guess what? Somebody's got to pay for that.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about that. Now, there's issues in the legislature. The lieutenant governor wants to propose, as I understand, a rebalancing or a repricing. Members of the legislature in the House, and I, don't want to do that. So somebody's going to have to pay the $40 billion. This reminds me of some mistakes that governments have made. Many years ago when I was treasurer of Harris County got into what's called credit interest swaps. And they made a big mistake. They were banking on the fact that interest rates would go up. And we would save in the long term money for the taxpayers. Well, what's happened is since they got into those swaps, interest rates have been depressed. So Harris County has paid hundreds of millions of dollars to Wall Street interests. During the mortgage-backed security debacle, again, guess who was left holding the bag? And so this is something to watch out for. And the Republicans, the conservatives in the state of Texas need to be very careful about that. So somebody's going to have to pay that $40 billion. And those bills haven't come due.
That has a lot to do with people getting electricity bills so high.
No.
That's a different issue.
One. Yep, because some people in Texas, very few, went to a market-based pricing, meaning they paid whatever the market demanded that day. And so those that did not have a fixed contract with the REPs, the retail electric providers, got screwed big time. Okay. They're the ones that getting, $15,000 bills for a few days, right?
And it's lawsuits now because of that.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of lawsuits. Yeah. The lawyers come in and whatnot. But anyway, somebody's going to have to pay the bill, and I just want you guys to be aware that that's a major issue that very few people are talking about. So let's switch over to the crises at the border.
It's not only the border anymore. we're having the crisis here
in Houston.
in Houston.
And that's an interesting point you
Yeah.
bring up.
I was
Andrea,
watching the news.
one of the things that I cannot tolerate in politics from either side, Republicans or Democrats, conservative or liberals, is the hypocrisy, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about when the Trump administration was dealing with their crises on the border. We had some people in downtown Houston marching, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that? They wanted to
Oh, yeah.
abolish ICE.
Yeah, ahí está la foto.
And so we want to show you a picture of some of our leaders.
We're seeing the
We
picture
see our
right now.
county judge, Lena Hidalgo, abolish ICE. The Republicans are mismanaging the
I
crisis.
see Sylvia Garcia also.
We see Sylvia Garcia, our U.S.
Carol
Congresswoman.
Alvarado.
Yes.
And the activist Cesar Espinosa,
Yeah.
your friend.
So all these folks wanted to abolish ICE because the administration, Trump, was mismanaging the border crises. Well, now we have a different situation. Now we have the Biden administration mismanaging the border situation. We have a crisis, but all the people you saw, and including our Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, who were protesting and wanting to abolish ICE, she's now on the welcoming committee, welcoming the buses and the children to the warehouses in North Houston.
And I saw the mayor, Sylvester Turner, saying, regardless where you're coming from and regardless your situation, I am your mayor.
Correct. So,
Interesting.
a little bit of hypocrisy I just want to point out. If you're warehousing children and you don't like that, that's a valid issue. They used to call them cages. Now they call them facilities.
Of course. Yeah. It depends who's the president.
Yeah, a little politics. So, and of course the media jumps all over it, right? Republicans have cages, Democrats have facilities. Unaccompanied minors, we separate them at the border, but now they're being separate. You've seen the pictures, right? The coyotes, the human smugglers dumping children, dropping them 15, 20 feet.
And I saw a story about a Ecuadorian, una mujer de Ecuador, Ecuadorian woman, that she came and the coyotes told her, don't worry, it's going to be very smooth. We're just going to cross the border and nothing is going to happen. Those coyotes forced her to jump the fence. Now she had to cut the leg. So
amputate.
Amputate the leg.
Yeah.
So she is without one leg.
I'm sure she had health insurance.
Yeah, right.
So you and I paid for that.
Yeah, of course. So she is without one leg, and the other one is pretty much completely broke damage. Yeah. So, and she's crying, and she's giving her testimony on the news, and she's saying they promised me something, and look at me. Now I'm here in this country.
Yep. But she's going to get Social Security disability.
Yeah, and the kids, I already saw the kids in front of computers. I don't know if that was a stage picture, but I saw the kids in front of computers, and they were saying like they need to provide education for them. And one lady that is from another group against all of these things, she said, I'm so disappointed of this because the government it need to fix first the problem, the crisis on the border before it send all these kids to the big cities.
Yeah.
Because it's overwhelmed. I mean, it's not capacity.
And for those of you that have watched this program and know about what I've been talking about, illegal immigration is not a new issue, folks. Let me repeat. Illegal immigration is not a new issue. It's not a crisis just for Republicans. It's not a crisis just for the Democrats. We all know what the problem is. It's the importation of cheap labor into this country that's been happening for over half a century. Let me repeat that. Illegals are coming over because we have lax border security, because we need cheap labor. Whether you like that or not, whether you accept that as a premise or not, it's a fact. Now, let me share with you an interview that was aired in 1974 with Cesar Chavez in California. Cesar was trying to keep the wages of the farm workers in California at a sustainable level where the farm workers could earn a living. And the border was wide open. So you had undocumented aliens in 1974 come over and take the jobs of the permitted legally documented farm workers in California. And so, Mark, we're going to ask you to roll the interview.
This question of the illegals I find very interesting. Would you say that it's, at this particular moment, as important as any of the other problems facing the union?
Oh, yes. In the last 3 weeks, last 2 weeks, it has become an emergency for us. Well, there's an awful lot of illegals coming in by the hundred, by the thousands. Our people are not only in some of the crews where there's now strike breaking. Some of those crews are 100% illegals, outright, openly, with no attempt to disguise it. And so it's so bad now that we estimate 60 to 70% of the farm workers in California, of the resident worker, of the citizen, is out of a job because of the wetbacks. They're coming in by the thousands, just unbelievable. See, they're coming in with the consent of the Immigration Service, which is part of the Department of Justice. How else could they come? We, for instance, know that if you go to Coachella, you go to around the El Paso area, the secondary immigration checkpoints have been unmanned now for at least 3-4 weeks. They're closed. They're at night. They're dark. There aren't any patrolmen there. It's a gimmick. We think that it's a prelude at the beginning to a big drive on the part of the administration and the Mexican government to bring the Bracero program again. It's a vicious attack on the local worker, and it's just one of those things that agribusiness thinks they can get away with it. And our job is to inform the whole country what's happening, together with a boycott, and solve it that way. And so the workers themselves, even though a lot of them are Mexican descendancy themselves, are very uptight and very, very worried and very mad about the illegals coming to break their strikes, and it takes away their jobs, their livelihood, and so forth.
Does that put you in an uncomfortable position to be against the illegal immigrants because they are from Mexico? In other words, part of your program has been an appeal to equal treatment of people of Mexican origin, right?
Oh yeah, sure, but we're speaking of the legal ones. You know, we don't want Mexico to export its poverty to us, and then we pay. It's not the agriculture, it's not society in general, it's a farm worker again paying for those sins, you know. And Mexico should take the initiative and stop exporting the poverty to us. They should do something about the rural economy over there. And then, see, it's a way of breaking the strike, it's a way of demoralizing the farm workers. And for instance, the workers are going to ask for stamps, for food stamps. They're lining up the offices for welfare, and they're being told, we can't give you a job because there are plenty of jobs. And the workers say, well, there aren't any jobs. We just came from the fields, they won't hire us, or they just laid us off because either because we're strikers, or because we're members of the union, or because the Braceros, the illegals will do the job for half the money we're getting.
And there you have it. If Cesar Chavez's name were not under there, you would think this is a modern-day conservative Republican. What he said is, we're paying the price.
Of course.
What he meant was the American taxpayer.
And he was only talking about the Mexican. In that time, it was the Braceros program.
Yeah.
It was a completely different situation as we're living these days. These days, it's not just the Mexicans.
Nope.
And it took my attention, something that he said, we don't want Mexico to export their poverty.
Well, no, and what we have is Latin America exporting their
And
poverty
now
into
it's
the
not
United
Mexico
States.
only.
And
It's everywhere.
what happens is people don't realize that the burden of health care and the burden of educating these children falls on us, the local property taxpayers, because the Democrats in Washington aren't helping us. They're not sending us extra money for education. And so our urban public education system has reverted back to what's called separate but equal, which was the Jim Crow laws. Urban public education in Texas is falling apart. And so, all right, let's move away from that because we're going to have somebody that is going to be in a position of leadership in education. But, hey, I wanted to point out some of our tough Latinas that are leading down in the Rio Grande Valley. The Hidalgo County Republican Party, and Mark can put up a picture of our ladies down in the Rio Grande Valley, which, by the way, we're going to be in next weekend today.
Yeah, that's true, on the dinner, no?
No, we're going to have 3 days down in the Rio Grande Valley meeting the conservative Republican leaders, many of whom are Latinas, leading the way. Remember, in April of last year, I predicted that Hispanics and Tejanos would save the state of Texas. And these are the women responsible for some of that change of voters down in South Texas along the border voting more conservative than liberal.
I think definitely South Texas is going to save Texas.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a picture of some of our fine ladies. But we have a gentleman down from the Rio Grande Valley who is our guest today, very involved in education issues. He's a business person, and I'm going to let Andrea tell us a little bit about our guest.
Well, his name is Adrian Garcia, young conservative from the Valley, and he is running for HCISD Trustee Place 4, meaning for the school district.
That's correct.
Over there in the Valley. And he's very young, conservative, and, Harlingen and Adrian Garcia, we're seeing his website right now, and elections is on May 1st. So I want everybody to know that some elections are in May 1st, some for the mayor, like the mayor of Pasadena, it's on May 1st here in Pasadena, Texas, and also in some of the school district are in May 1st, and early voting started on April 19 and it finished in April 27. So it's very important because we always are so excited about presidential elections, but these are our local government that we need to pay attention because that's when it impacts our life in a daily basis.
Yeah, so Andrea is correct. There are general election days that the state legislature says we can hold elections. May is one of those dates. Most elections are held in November, and that's what everybody gets excited about, right? You have the off year, you have the gubernatorial races and state races, and then every 4 years you have the presidential races. But we have municipal, local elections in May. So our conservative Latinos across the state, pónganse las pilas y salgan a votar si ustedes si tienen elecciones en su distrito, en su condado, o en su ciudad. There's a lot of good conservative young Latinos that are wanting to lead. And by the way, this is our farm team. This is the team that's going to lead Texas into the future. So we're really excited to have Adrian Garcia down from the Rio Grande Valley. So welcome, Adrian. How are you?
Adrián, ¿cómo estás?
Buenos días, Orlando, Andrea. Muchas gracias por tenerme aquí. Good morning. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, we're delighted you took some time out. So let's get right into it. Who is Adrian Garcia? Tell us a little bit about the bio. Where are you from? What's your heritage? Where'd your parents come from? What do you do now in business? And what is it you want to do now in leadership?
Sure. So I was born in Weslaco, Texas. I spent the majority of my childhood in Vallehermoso, Mexico. That's where my family had a lot of their business and a lot of their work. My brother came to school here, so we were here quite often as well. So I kind of grew up in both Texas and Vallehermoso at the same time. Came here in 2010, have been here ever since. Started at Rodriguez Elementary School with HCISD, finished at the School of Health Professions with HCISD. I currently work at Keller Williams Realty. I'm a realtor, so I have firsthand knowledge of property values, taxes, assessments, building costs, contracting costs, and that's the kind of experience that I want to bring to the school board. Along with being a recent graduate, I was in our schools here at HCIC not too long ago, so I know our school system better than most people do. My mom's a teacher, so I hear stories from her every day as to what our school system is and how we can improve, and that's the kind of firsthand knowledge of a 21st century learning environment that I want to bring to the board.
Adrian, why you want to focus on education? Why you want to help these kids over there in the Valley? Because I know you have your own business and you start running your business. So why you want to run for this position?
Sure, I'll tell you. So for a long time, there's been a stigmatism that Valley kids, perhaps aren't as prepared as kids from the remainder of the state. And so that's a stigmatism that I fought hard to, kind of push against and kind of prove myself as first a student leader and now professionally. And that's the kind of motivation that I want for kids to have. I'm still young and I want for kids from our community who see me running for office at this age to say, it can be done. It can be done for a student who didn't originally speak English to run for office. It can be done. and to have somebody to motivate them to do more than the status quo.
Well, you're just an amazing leader. I can't believe that you are able to juggle, business and then campaigning. Adrian, I've always said that education is the ticket out of poverty. Education is the way to assimilate and participate in the free enterprise system. This is the way that people advance. And one of the things I've noticed, Adrian, is that in large school districts in Texas, for example, here in Houston, I think we're the third largest independent school district. And you're absolutely correct. If you look at your tax bill, and many of you have gotten your property value assessments by your local appraisal districts, and in many cases, you're going to see that your property values have allegedly skyrocketed, which means that your tax bill next year when you pay it, or at the end of this year, is going to be substantially higher. The bulk of that tax goes to local school districts. But Adrian, in terms of public education here in the Houston area, our school district, in my opinion, and I said this a moment ago before you came on the air, has reverted back to a separate but equal system of education. Our dropout rate among young Latinos in HISD is astronomical. We're failing these kids in the urban areas of Texas. Now, I know it's different in rural areas, and I consider the Rio Grande Valley is becoming an urbanized area. But how are you guys going to address the dropout rate and ensuring that you have a good retention rate and that kids graduate?
Sure. So the thing that I keep hearing a lot is that not only do we have to focus on students who are dropping out specifically because of perhaps language difficulties or whatnot, but also on students who are leaving because they're going to charter schools, right? That's been a big problem. We got 2 of our first charter schools within the past 5 years. So we got the IDEA campus here in Harlingen, along with the Jubilee campus here in Harlingen, that really have not only been taking students from us, but teachers who are highly qualified as well, just because they're getting, better pay or better benefits, and students may have some better resources or opportunities. So for the students like me who, weren't originally English speakers, I want to set up a mentorship program. And I've talked about it before with other forums. It's hard to talk to somebody who hasn't gone through what you're going through, right? So being able to see kids who perhaps are starting off in elementary school and who haven't really been, woven into the English language and the English education setting, it's kind of hard to talk to them unless you know what they're going through. So if you know what they're going through and you're able to address that in a meaningful manner personally as to how you went through that and how you were able to succeed, I think that really, kind of empowers kids to keep working hard.
Okay, Adrian, I have a question. You are in the Valley and you're been watching the news as everybody's been watching the news with the crisis in the border, with all these kids coming from everywhere in Latin America. And now we're having this problem not only in the border, but we're having this problem and these issues in the big cities. But you're running for a position in a school district. What is your plan to take care of these issues? Because now you're going to have many kids that you were talking about, the struggling with the language, and you're going to have these kids that's coming that's speaking only Spanish, and it's going to be overwhelmed for the school district.
Yeah. So what I've kind of heard so far is, there has to be some direction from the top. And so TEA really has to work with, the Department of Education, the Secretary of Education, Mike Morath, to kind of develop some kind of learning plan for these students, right? Because it's going to be really hard. There's going to be a big influx of students, especially down here where we have, I believe the Donna facility has 10 times the capacity that it was built to hold. So it's going to be difficult in the years to come, but we got to be efficient. We got to be prepared. We got to remember that, a lot of these kids, their parents aren't property owners, so they're not going to be paying taxes. So ensuring that our budget stays healthy and that we manage money appropriately to be able to handle this new influx of students, what that's going to add to our bills, our instruction costs, and of course our food delivery costs as well.
Adrian, I want to go back to the concept of competition in public education. You mentioned charter schools. Charter schools, in my opinion, at least here in Houston, some of them are doing a magnificent job. In fact, they're at capacity because some parents are trying desperately to get their children into charter schools because their local public school is a utter failure. And I mean that because the Texas Education Agency has a grading system, as I'm sure you're aware. And there are several schools in urban areas, in Houston in particular, that have received a grade of F, meaning that they're failing. And they typically are in either brown or African American communities. That is, in my opinion, an abject failure of the entire system. When you fail children, which is our future and our responsibility to provide them an education, it is unforgivable. But charter schools are competing. Now, I would argue, first of all, I want to know your position on competition in public education. Do you believe that competition, as in the free market, improves the system? Because, for example, you're in the real estate business, right? And you get a contract, and your client has a dilapidated house, versus next door, your competitor takes the initiative to repaint the house, replace the broken windows. They're going to have a better chance of selling that house, right? That's competition. So, how do you feel about competition in public education?
Sure. I think that, competition, as with everything, is always good. But my specific stance on it is, competition is good, but let's make sure we have the strongest school system so that we are the best competitor in our market. So it's good to have charter school choice, as many people consider it. There's parents who perhaps want some schools that
Oh, we're losing his audio. We're losing. Okay.
Okay, Adrian, if you can hear us, we've lost your audio.
Adriani, if you can hear us, we cannot hear you. So let's. I don't know if he mute himself.
And typically what we do is we ask you to log out and just log back in. Mark, is that all right? Yeah. If you can hear us, Adrian, just log out and log back in. We'll put you back on.
Let's talk about Leadership Latino.
Well, let's talk about Leadership Latino, but I think Mark may be busy right now and can't put up the graphic. But Leadership Latino is, as you know, Texas Latino Conservatives is a political action committee, and we're a general purpose committee in the state of Texas that does get involved in politics. We make contributions to candidates. We do mailers and digital media and radio commercials and phone banks and block walking for candidates that we feel are going to move the conservative philosophy in the state of Texas, because we want to keep Texas conservative.
And I want to bring that.
But hang on, let me finish.
Okay, finish.
We also have a 501c4, a nonprofit corporation under the IRS code that doesn't get involved in politics. We don't get involved in promoting candidates, but we do get involved in issues. And part of what we do is we train young people that want to be conservative leaders in Texas. We've been doing this for several years. One of our graduates in 2019 was Maida Flores. And as you know, Maida has become a leader down in the Rio Grande Valley. I'm sure that Adrian knows her. And we're very proud of Maida. She has just announced that she's going to be a candidate for Congress in the 34th Congressional District down in South Texas. But this is what we do. We'll take young people, young conservatives, and even if you're not a conservative, let's say you're a liberal and you've realized that socialism and, government cheese and dependency on government is not for you or your family, come join us. We'll train you on how to deal with the media, how to raise money, how to file your documents with the Texas Ethics Commission, how to handle the press, how to dress, how to do a press release. We do that all in one day. Our next class is in Plano, Texas on Saturday.
Weekend, huh?
Yeah, this weekend. And folks, we're oversubscribed. We had to go find more chairs. We had to get a bigger room.
That's a good problem to have.
That's a great problem to have. So we're approaching 40 young people that want to learn everything from grassroots politics to being a campaign manager to becoming a precinct chair to even becoming a candidate themselves like Maida Flores. So we're doing that this Saturday. You can go to our website. You can still log on. It's TexasLatinoConservatives.com, and then click on Leadership Latino. If you can't make this coming Saturday's class in Plano, Texas, We move around the state. We've done it in the Rio Grande Valley. We've done them in San Antonio. We've done them in Austin. We've done them in Dallas. We've
Here
done
in
them
Houston.
in Houston. So we go all over, right?
And I wanted to mention the Leadership Latino while Adrian connect with us again, because, seeing a young conservative like Adrian, that's what we want to do. That's what our mission and our vision, to bring more young Latino conservatives that run for office. And I know, Adrian he's a business person, but he's taking the time to give back to the community. And the only way to give back to the community is to be the voice for the community. And that's what he's doing. And that's what Mayra Flores is doing. So now they're seeing what is going on around the country. They're seeing what is going on here in Texas, and it's more and more every day we're watching the news. It's like, oh my God, what is going on? So seeing these and taking action, and that's what we want for more conservative Latinos, and we're helping them to achieve their goals.
And what's amazing to me, I don't know if you find it amazing like I do. It is the overwhelming number of young Latino, either immigrants or children of immigrants that are making their conservative voices heard. It's just amazing. And I think we have him back, right?
I have two at home,
yes,
Orlando.
Yeah, I'm back.
So okay, Adrian, we left off at talking about competition, and I like your comment. I think you got cut off saying you like competition, but you want your school district to compete and become the premier school district in your community.
That's right.
Is that right?
So choice is great, but let's make sure that our school district is the best choice. That's
amazing. And let the chips fall where they might, right? I mean,
That's right.
if the charter schools and private schools and parents are choosing to send their children elsewhere, so be it, right? That's the market. It's either decide to go to with Keller Williams, or you decide to go to Century 21 or Caldwell Banker, right? That's the free market.
And it all depends on what they provide to you. So let's make sure we have the best resources, the best opportunities for kids, the best learning environment, so that they pick us.
All right. Excellent. I love your position on that. I'm glad you're on the right track. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about, because I'm an immigrant too, and Andrea's an immigrant, and you obviously spent a lot of your time in Mexico. You're like me. When I immigrated to this country, Adrian, I didn't speak a word of English. Andrea still does it.
I'm still struggling with the language, Adrian, but I'm making my best effort.
But Adrian, share with us, and for all the thousands of young people that are watching us, how is it that you became a conservative? What is it? Your natural values? I mean, were you at one time liberal? I mean, how does a young man like you, living in the Rio Grande Valley, where for decades people have voted with the liberal Democrats, come out and say, I'm a conservative? How did you arrive at that?
And I think that a lot of people have believed that for the Valley, but a lot of people down here are Catholic. A lot of people down here are very religious and very conservative, and that's something that really isn't known as well. But my family is very conservative. We've always been careful with managing money, with our family, with what we say, what we do, what we believe in, and so it's just basically been the past almost 20 years of my life, and woven into my family and into our values and into a family that of course prioritizes God. I'm a very religious person, and that's the kind of environment that I was raised in. So not only that, but seeing kind of everything that's been going on down here. And what I tell people is they'll be like, oh, well, do you vote a straight down ticket or what do you do? And a big example of that was Vanessa Tijerina, right? She ran for Senate down here against Eddie Lucio, who tends to be very conservative in his voting record. And she, kind of introduced herself as the most progressive Republican to run for Senate. And so I never pick party. I pick people, and I pick what represents my values and what's really going to affect the Rio Grande Valley positively.
I love that part.
Well,
I love that part because I've been like that, since all my life when I was in Colombia. But now when I get to this country and when I became a U.S. citizen, I never vote for a party. I never pick a party. I was like always my values, conservatives and something that it was going with the way I was raised.
Yeah. So, Adrian, I want to pick up on something you said. I've been in politics for 25 years, and you say you don't pick parties, you vote your values, and that's great. We always tell people vote their values, because when they do vote their values, if they're conservative values, which most of Latinos are, they'll vote with, there's only two teams on the field, Adrian, right? There's the red team and the blue team in partisan races. Now, you're probably in a nonpartisan race, but let me tell you something.
That's right.
Either you don't vote in primaries, or you do vote in primaries. Which one is it?
I vote in every single election.
So you have a primary voting history. Now, I don't, this is part of being in public life and in politics 25 years, so I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. Are you voting in the Democratic primary or the Republican primary?
So I'll tell you, that was a big question that I had. And it especially happened, last March. We had a lot of Republicans who were running. And in my head I knew that John Cornyn was going to be the Republican nominee, and I knew that Donald Trump was going to be the Republican nominee. And I, in particular, had a friend who was running for district clerk who I knew was going to do a really, really great job. So I voted in the Democratic primary just because down here, really, in our local politics, if you really want to make an impact, you vote for Democrats that tend to lean conservatively, because otherwise, down here, it really doesn't matter who you vote for on the Republican primary, because that these big, Republican candidates are going to be the nominees either way.
Okay, so we want to make sure, though, that you're successful in your election. We obviously know you're conservative, but, I want to be fair to our viewers, because everybody's got a voting record. So, and I agree with you. I know Senator Eddie Lucio. He's a former county treasurer down, I think, in Nueces County. Very, very conservative man. Frankly, hard to find somebody more conservative than Eddie. But at the end of the day, one party stands for abortion. One party stands for, anybody can marry. You can marry a canine, or you can marry someone of the same sex. And it's, so there's one party that tends to hold to traditional values and values life, values free markets, values the Constitution, values the Second Amendment, values law and order on the border. And so, we need to know those things. But, and I think most people down in the Rio Grande Valley and the Texas border understand. I'm always telling people that they always misread our border counties. The Second Amendment is huge on border counties, because all of our Latinos and Latinas are hunters. They live on ranches.
That's right.
They need protection against drug cartels that are trespassing on their property. Do you agree or disagree with that comment, Adrian?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're gun owners. I know our neighbors are gun owners. The entire street has guns in their house, whether it's for sport or personal protection, of course. We're big believers in that. And that's why I think that a lot of Valley people, it stings a little bit to vote in Democratic primaries, but we know that, when it comes to sheriff races and when it comes to state rep races and that kind of stuff, really, there hasn't been a good Republican who has, really come out strong and run for office. So I think that when we start seeing that, we're really going to have a trajectory of people who are kind of shifting, their primary picks because they see people have a shot at winning a seat down here.
Well, I will tell you, I am a property owner on the border in Kinney County, and we do have strong conservative Republican leaders. And, it may be a little far away from you, but I will remind you that South Texas voted for Tony Gonzalez, a veteran of the United States military, a Republican, and a solid leader to replace Will Hurd.
Yeah, we have a constable down here that it's one of the first times that there's been a Republican constable who has won a seat. And that was
Excellent.
this past
Excellent.
election.
And don't forget, your former Cameron County judge was Tony Garza, who became the Secretary of State and United States Ambassador to Mexico, a strong Republican conservative leader down from the RGV. So there are good conservative Republican leaders down in the Rio Grande.
Yeah. Adrian, at what point of your life you decide, like, I'm going to get into politics, I want to be the voice of my community, and what is your goals after, if you win this election, do you have any goals to run for other position, higher position, and what are you doing also to encourage and bring other young Latinos conservatives to also run for office and be the voice for the community?
Of course. So I think that politics was kind of ingrained in me from an early age. My grandpa, my mom's dad, was very, very involved in politics and agriculture in his hometown. He was very connected with the Conasupo department, the Department of Agriculture in Mexico, and kind of managed that, the Chamber of Commerce, and all that kind of stuff. My mom was also very involved with the PAN party. Which is kind of funny because her dad was very involved with the PRI party, so it was kind of a split
So
family.
mom was a panista, and then the other side of the household was the PRI.
That's right, yeah, PRIista. So we've always been in politics. I guess that once I got here, that's why I wanted to get involved. It wasn't just a love of politics that has been kind of passed down to me, but seeing where our children lack and where we can do better is kind of what pushed me to go ahead and file for the seat. Another reason is because the incumbent, he was appointed, I believe, 7 years ago. He hasn't had to, spend a dime ever since the campaign. So my whole thing was, let's give the community a choice as to who they want to represent them this election.
So I'm assuming the race for school board down there is nonpartisan. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, good. And so let's talk about specific issues because we did advertise down in Harlingen and Hidalgo and areas that you would be on the program today. So this is an opportunity for you to talk about your platform. If people are considering voting for Adrian Garcia, what can they expect? What are your issues? What are you going to be pushing for?
Sure. So as always, one of the big things that we always focus on is taxes. I look at taxes every day. So making sure that people's hard-earned taxpayer money is being used adequately and efficiently. In 2016, we had a bond passed called the TRE, the Tax Ratification Election. It wasn't very popular with the community, but they really advertised it to teachers and whatnot that it passed, and it raised our taxes. We had almost one of the highest tax rates beginning in 2016. It did get lowered back in I believe 2019 because the legislature mandated that we lower our taxes again, and that was advertised as a tax break, right, to the community. And so my whole thing is, let's be transparent, let's let the community know what's going on, and let's work with our Cameron Appraisal District. We have one of our former school board members for HCISD who sits on the Cameron Appraisal District. And this year and the past year, we've had such a high influx in taxes in some of our core districts in Harlingen. People can't even afford, their taxes anymore, even though their houses are paid off, because they've seen a, 40 to 45% increase in the past 2 years. So my whole thing is, as community members, community leaders, trustees for our constituents, let's work on behalf of them to ensure that taxes are used fairly and that we can work together with, county departments to lower taxes for our constituents. Of course, there's always efficient use of funds, and we have a lot of great projects that are being built down here. But I want to make sure that projects that are built are projects that are needed, right? So one big example is our golf skill station. We had I believe, $350,000 project for a golf skill station built down here. And our kids simply don't utilize it all that much because we still have contracts with both of the golf courses here in Harlingen. And so those are $350,000 that could have gone to infrastructure repairs at some of our schools that need them, or pest control, treatments at schools that have mice problems, or, even teacher incentive grants to incentivize our teachers and to come up with ideas and programs for our students. And so making sure that money is used where it's needed and that it's used to benefit students and teachers is really what our campaign is all about.
So wise, efficient use of taxpayer dollars and then good stewardship on the school board and in the schools of the resources provided by the taxpayers. I'm curious, what is your tax rate down there per $100 valuation?
If I'm not mistaken, I have it right here. 1 second.
And that's kind of an unfair question because, as you know, you get your tax bill and you have about, 12 different public entities, from the county to the local city to your fire district to your school board.
Yeah,
to your MUD.
It really does. Yeah. And the thing down here is that not only do we pay taxes to HCISD, but we have a school district that covers the entirety of the valley called STISD, South Texas ISD, which we pay taxes to as well. So regardless if you send your kid to STISD or not, you're stuck paying taxes to two school districts. And so that's why it's really, really important to ensure that we can lower taxes when we can. And the city actually had a big tax up hike within the past 2 years. And what the city said is, well, one of our city commissioners said, well, we up taxes because the school district lowered theirs. And so my whole thing is, there's no point in lowering taxes, and then another city entity is just going to raise theirs right back up.
Yeah, and as somebody in the real estate business, because you mentioned this, that some people are getting tax bills that, in terms of assessments are 40 and 50% higher. Adrian, I don't know about Cameron County, Hidalgo County, down in the Rio Grande Valley, but I can tell you, and I have a real estate license myself, property values in Texas have not gone up 50% year over year. Yet you get your appraisal every year. My sister has a piece of property in Houston. They increased the value by $80,000, a small parcel of land. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And and a lot of elected officials hide behind the appraisal district. They would say, well, we're not in charge. We're just in charge of the tax rate. We're not, And so they're letting the appraisal districts do their bidding. I am really shocked that you said you have a current board member that also sits on the appraisal district. I find that to be a horrible
former
conflict
school
of
board
it.
member.
Oh, former school board member.
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Yes, he sat on the
I
board for, I
misunderstood
believe,
you.
30 years, and now he
Wow.
sits on the Cameron Appraisal District.
Okay. Well, there's certainly no violation of statute there, but it is what it is. So, all right, well, we're very proud of you. I mean, it sounds to me like you have good conservative principles. You have good business acumen. I think you're going to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. And when you're elected, I think you're going to oversee that high tax rate that goes into the school district. And, one of the things I tell conservatives across the state is apply conservative principles to Texas education issues, particularly in urban areas. Because, as you know, Adrian, that's our future. Those kids in primary and secondary education depend on us for their future, and we depend on them to keep the Texas economy humming. And so, you obviously understand that, and you've received a good education. You're obviously on top of the issues, and we want to thank you for taking the time out. So take the last few minutes of our program to talk to fellow voters down in your district and tell them why they should vote for Adrian Garcia.
Sure. So I'll start off by saying that in the years to come, we have such a big opportunity to transform the Valley into an industrial hub, right? And so that starts with our students, with the new Space Eds campus that we have at Boca Chica, hiring thousands of employees. We need to prepare our students for achievement. And so we do that starting in our elementary level by educating our students with resources that are meaningful, by teaching them STEM, engineering, technology, mathematics, that is really going to accelerate their careers, by working together with county officials and TEA to ensure that we have the best programs for our students, and that they're prepared leaving high school to be successful in college and to be prepared for post-secondary education. And so that's what we want to do for everybody, right? I'm a product of public schools. My mom works in public schools. Our campaign manager is a public school teacher of almost 15 years. So when it comes to knowing schools, that's our principle. That's the mantra of our campaign, is listening to parents, students, teachers every day, hearing their concerns as to what we're doing wrong and what we can do better, and where we're doing fine just right now. And so building on that, learning upon that, working to ensure that each student can and does succeed, and making sure that our board is a good steward of the taxpayer money, that we're making the best choices on behalf of the community. And one of the big things that I pride myself on is to listen. We're here on behalf of the taxpayer. They elect us to these positions, and it's only our job to listen to them, to be there for them, to address their concerns and their needs, and to have an open door policy. That's what I've told a lot of people, that I will have an open door policy. I will be approachable. I will be there to listen. I'll be only a phone call away to any parent who needs to talk to me, because that's the job and that's the work that we sign up for.
Adrian, it's very, very important.
We're passionate about public education. What happened?
No. I'll just finish.
Yeah, no, that's what we emphasize. We emphasize an open door policy for anybody that needs to address us, is to be there for them, to listen to them, to be there for their children, for the teachers of HCISD, and to represent the taxpayer well.
Very important. And you know what? Now that we're having all of these companies, technology companies coming to Texas, we need to really concentrate in education to our kids, for our kids. That way they can take advantage that we're having all of these opportunities here in our state. So education is the key.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
It's the key that really does open every door, and we have all of these incredible opportunities opening up here in Texas, and it's our kids' jobs to take advantage of them.
Well, good education promotes great economic development. So, te felicitamos. Estamos muy orgullosos de lo que has logrado. Te deseamos mucho éxito y ojalá vas a ser el próximo líder en el sistema de educación en tu comunidad. We're proud of you as a young leader with good conservative values. We hope that next time you vote in primaries, you'll be voting with the Republicans, because I think it's a growing party down in the Rio Grande Valley and along the Texas border. But we wish you all the best. We want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, because I'm sure you have you're chock full of properties that you're listing and you're campaigning. So you got your hands full. So if you want to buy a property down in the Rio Grande Valley, make sure that Adrian Garcia gets your listing, or you call him to represent you on your purchase. And just giving you a little plug there. You got to learn how to plug your business
I appreciate
as well.
It. It's perfect.
So thanks for coming on. Thanks for agreeing. We want to wish you all the success in the world. And if you need us, we're here for you. If you want to come back on the program, give us an update of what's going on in the RGV. And hopefully we'll get to meet you next week. We'll be in there Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to meet with you all. I know that I'm really excited. On the 24th, I got invited to an event where Mayra's going to be, so I'll get to meet her then. But, then again, muchas gracias. Mucho gusto. To the people down here, I hope that I can count on your support. Espero contar con su voto y su apoyo, because we need to do the work for our kids. And I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to share my platform with y'all.
Muchas gracias, Adrián, y recuerden que las elecciones son el 1 de mayo y la votación anticipada comienza abril 19 hasta abril 27. Elections is May 1st and early voting started April 19 till April 27. May 1st. Remember, May 1st. Everybody think elections is November. No, we have also elections in May for districts and cities and some counties.
Qué orgulloso deben de estar los padres de Adrián.
Oh, my God, imagínate.
Excelente. Y ese es el futuro del estado de Texas. Son inmigrantes, hijos de inmigrantes, conservadores, que van a ser los líderes.
Gente latina joven.
Gente latina.
Well, somos tejanos ahora. Oh, by the way, I want to talk about that. And Adrian, you can get off anytime. We're going to talk about an issue, or you can stay on and listen. But Texas Latino Conservatives has been promoting Tejano Day in Texas, honoring the Tejanos that have contributed for centuries to what is the great state of Texas, our culture, our cuisine, the way we think, our conservatism, those that have fought for our country. We often forget that Tejanos, particularly of Mexican-American descent, but we have Tejanos that are also of Spanish descent, because remember, the first mayor ever elected in Texas was from, Canary Islanders, Spain. They still have the Canary Islanders Association in Bexar County in San Antonio. So one of our dear friends, actually two of our dear friends that we endorsed in the last election, State Representative Michael Schofield and
Katie
and Jesse Jeton, I believe, from Fort Bend, are co-sponsors in the House of what's called House Concurrent Resolution number 67, which will establish, I think, April 3rd as Tejano Day in Texas for the next decade. There will be a committee hearing scheduled, subject to change, on Monday, April 12th in the Culture, Tourism, and something else committee. You can sign up to speak and give testimony if you want to promote Tejano Day in Texas. It's a concurrent resolution. If you want to follow it, you can. It's HCJ number 67, House Concurrent Resolution 67. And Texas Latino Conservatives has played a key role in helping lead to make sure that we have Tejano Day in Texas. And so we're very proud of that achievement. We want to thank both Representatives Schofield and Jeton for being co-sponsors in the House. And we look forward to the day that the governor signs the resolution declaring Tejano Day in Texas. We're very proud of that. We'll keep you updated. We'll have something on our website, which is www.texaslatinoconservatives.com. And as always, remember, we rely on your contributions and the generosity of Texans, conservative Texans, to keep us on the air, to keep developing young leaders that will be the future conservative leaders of the state of Texas. We continue to promote our candidates. We continue to encourage the Latino to vote their values in Texas. But all that requires money, right, Andrea?
That's right. So help us to help, go to TexasLatinoConservatives.com, become a member, and it's only $35 a year. And if you can contribute a little bit more, well, it's always, we thank you so much for that.
And we're out of time, so I think next week I'm going to be on board from the Rio Grande Valley.
So you're gonna do the show remotely from there?
From the valley.
From the valley. Okay.
Yep. So,
okay, Mr. Sanchez.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. I want to thank our production crew for helping us produce an excellent program. We apologize for last week's technical issues, but as you know, this is, we're dependent on the internet. We're dependent on cell phones. We're dependent on, technology. And, it's not like TV stations that have a direct beam right into your house. So thank you for putting up with some of our faux pas and mistakes and errors, but we do the best we can. We appreciate you viewing us. Again, visit us at TexasLatinoConservatives.com, and I will see you from the Rio Grande Valley next week, and I think Andrea will be here managing the studio. So until next week, hasta luego y que Dios los bendiga.
Nos vemos el próximo miércoles. Chao, chao.